up, Sabro and Wavy here. Today we got this one right here. What made the old Souls games so great? Let's read it.
Hello, it's me, Eirinn.
Sup, man?
And today I want to talk about something I've recently noticed. The old Souls games. Dark Souls and Demon Souls. They were amazing, but differently than the others.
More slower, more methodical.
I don't like them the same way I like the more modern Souls games. And I wanted to know why.
I wouldn't count Dark Souls 2 as a modern Souls game. I still think that Dark Souls 2 is still in the older era, in my opinion.
And this video is the result. Dissecting my love for the old Souls games. So first, I'd like to talk about the environments and levels. So, in the modern Souls games, I'm not really getting lost anymore. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're in Dark Souls 3. In, I don't know where, but almost all the areas work. So you go on the main path, and there's a side path that goes back to the main. You interact with a few levers or maybe doors, find one or two hidden items, open a shortcut, and then you're at the next bonfire. And after you've done all this, I have to ask, did you get lost in this level?
Never.
Because I sure didn't.
Except the Bloodborne. Like, damn.
And the only thing that came close to the feeling of getting lost is just me, discovering an area for the first time. Every level in Dark Souls 3 was pretty straightforward. I didn't really have any difficulties going through the levels, except from the enemies. And now, let's compare this with an area from Dark Souls 1. So, Blighttown. There are just so many different ways to go, so many hidden items, so much verticality, and it's just great. Hollows shooting poison at you from the other end of a platform, a weird, gigantic parasite in the middle of it all, a giant wheel that can get you at different levels of Blighttown, two different ways to enter it, and I was getting lost. Like, really, I couldn't find my way around, and it was really
But I also
hard.
think this has something to do with the darkness itself.
And it still is. You have to constantly pay attention to where you're walking because of how thin some platforms are, and then sometimes the platform itself would move. It was so memorable and unique. It's just awesome to not only have the enemies be a threat, but the level itself, and even more than a threat. There were just so many unique interactions, lore, and gameplay gimmicks. For example, in the Swamp of Sorrows, you can hit a ball of slugs to make them fall on the ground and drop the Moonlight Greatsword, and there's a neat animation when you pick it up. Since Fortress has traps, Duke's Archive stairs, the Crystal Cave in its invisible bridge, killing a giant to prevent it from throwing giant fireballs at you while fighting the Iron Golem, and a six-sided sorcerer in the depth to prevent him from boosting the Gaping Dragon.
Yeah, I must say it felt more original in the Dark Souls, in Dark Souls 1 especially, but like they reiterated that shit over and over again, like with Dark Souls 2 and 3, and this is why it doesn't feel that unique anymore or like mysterious in comparison to 1, you know?
Having to equip the orange charge ring to go through
Especially if you've played this one the first time.
Lost Idolith, which forces you to unequip one of your two rings for some of the area. Having no bonfires in Dulondo, it wouldn't make any sense to have a bonfire in a flooded city that plotted to smother the flame. The ghosts only being able to get attacked by using a really specific and limited item. Them also floating freely across the wall and floor and the constant threat of water/gravity death. And the anatomy of the level changed by a midway event that is not flooding the other half of the area. And having to equip the Abyss Walker ring to fight the Four Kings to, again, take one of your two ring slots. And all of this just contributed so much to making the areas of Dark Souls 1 feel unique. Almost all of them had a gimmick that made every level truly unforgettable. Now compare this to Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, he's right on that part. But on the later half in Dark Souls 1, this was for the most part a bit boring. When I'm being honest, like revisiting those areas. For the first time it was incredible, yeah, I can completely agree, but after that it didn't really feel like right, I guess.
Or even Elden Ring. For me, the feeling of mystery is almost completely lost. There's none of that strange, really specific, weird uniqueness. Dark Souls 3's and Elden Ring's areas are just so clear and smooth, too straightforward, too simple, too convenient. More bonfires and warping at the very beginning, no more backtracking. And honestly, in the recent games, dying and having to come back to my body just feels different than in Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, I was scared of getting lost on the way to my body because of the long distances between bonfires, and the amount of ways I could unintentionally go to thinking that was where I died. Like,
Yeah, they shouldn't overuse the bonfires anymore. Like, I think it's completely true. Like, bonfire placement in Dark Souls 1 is supreme.
backtracking. After killing Quelaag, you have to make your way all the way back to Firling Shrine, on foot. And my god, the feeling you have when you finally get there is priceless, and I haven't felt it in any other games. And now I'm actually questioning the fast travel mechanic being a good feature. Now you don't even have to really know the environment like you did in Dark Souls 1. You don't go through it as much, you don't really get attached to anything except for the hub and a few areas. And I now think that I stand on the bad feature side. Fast travel is robbing us from this unique to Dark Souls 1 feeling of being lost and helpless.
I think it's true
Or
as
to
well.
feel happy and rest when you find your way out and finally arrive in the safe area that you know. And this is reinforced by not having a map, only relying on your senses and the environment to guide you. In the modern Souls games, there are also just less environmental hazards, like for example, the poison in Valley of Defilement in Blighttown. They slow you down, fully, compared to the other games who either don't do it, don't go all the way, or added a horse. But they're also just
To be honest, it was. I think in Blighttown that slowness truly fitted in, but in the other Souls game it felt more annoying than than something else. Yeah.
less enigmatic interactions. I mean, is there anything comparable to the parasitic wallhugger in Blighttown, the Fair Lady, or getting a massive egg tumor? Yeah, I'm talking a lot about Blighttown. Like, the wallhugger really stuck with me. Like, you're just going through Blighttown with no health left, you're scared, and then in the distance you see a blurry thing, pulsating, little white strings coming out of it. You get closer and you see this, like, what is that? It was so weird and I loved it. I didn't know what to do, I was confused all the time. Why can't I hit those enemies? Why is there a message in the air? Oh my god, I can walk there? The way to enter the DLC, the painted world, the entirety of the painted world. Do you get what I mean? And in the modern Souls games,
I know.
I'm just not feeling like this anymore. And
It is because Souls 1 is the first time you discovered that shit, you know? Like, they did the same thing in 3. Maybe not that perfectly or nearly to that level of Souls 1, but it is, I think, the problem of playing a Souls game for your first time and then playing the other ones after that.
now, because I'm not going to mention that
Because I have the same feeling. This is why I like Dark Souls 2, for example, the most. I know that sounds insane and you might think I'm a lunatic, but it was just my first Souls game and it felt so nostalgic. And every time I get back to it, it still feels amazing. But even though the other ones are technically better, but that's just not how I feel about it, you know?
the Covenants. I love them. Like, look at the Grave Servants. How can a Covenant description be this long? And the Chaos Servants having questions attached to them is awesome. Too bad there were no such Covenants in Dark Souls 3. And too bad Elden Ring didn't have any Covenants.
Yeah, that was pretty sad. Like, I was so disappointed by Elden Ring. Elden Ring and its PvP, Elden Ring feels lifeless. Elden Ring truly feels like a true solo, maybe co-op RPG game, but it's not. It doesn't feel like a community. Not in comparison to something like Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. Like when you go in there, you see those different peoples with different covenants. So it feels more. I don't know. It just feels right.
And now coming
It
back
gives
to
it personality. Yeah.
the levels. The level design is just the cherry on top. Connecting all of those amazing environments together really makes them all shine brighter. Like, how many times did you have a moment where you were like, oh my god, I'm back here? Like, everything is connected in such a great way, everything makes sense, it feels real, and I'm not even mentioning the amazing and just indescribable atmosphere of the worlds of Dark Souls and Demon Souls. And all of this makes for a truly unique experience. And now, if you get rid of the enemies, Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 would lose a lot of their difficulty. But Dark Souls 1 still has things to show other than a beautiful view. But anyways,
This is the best view in the Soul series, I think. When the first time you got into Eirinn, man, it's insane.
talking about enemies,
Fana Lana on the side. Holy shit, the moon.
this allows me to transition into bosses. So, gimmick bosses were pretty frequent in Dark Souls and in Demon Souls even more so. And the boss fights in general were quite simple in terms of attack patterns, and often revolved around some gimmick or puzzle. The bosses would complement the challenge both by their environment and level, but not outwitting the level to the point of eclipsing it and sending as an independent, more significant challenge. And beating the boss of a level in those games actually felt like conquering the environment more than the boss itself. So what I'm trying to say is that, no, gimmick bosses are not underwhelming because they're not a super hard and fast humanoid boss.
The thing with
And even
gimmick
though
bosses, it's just the first playthrough where it feels great, perhaps, but after that it feels really, really boring.
I like the complexity of the boss fights that began with the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, gimmick bosses are just different and good in their own way, but I also understand that they're less good in the recent Souls games because of From Software simplifying their level design. Less connectivity, shortcuts, pathways, etc.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it would be a bit underwhelming after a big hallway of Dragon Slayer armor to have a boss that consists of, I don't know, spamming a weapon out like 5 times. But still, I'd also appreciate it if they didn't compromise the totality of the boss roster a Souls game has to offer of real bosses like people call them. I would like it to have those more gimmicky, less action-oriented boss fights be implemented back, maybe as a final to especially excruciating and intimidating levels. Would be, I think, very refreshing. But one thing that happens when those gimmicky bosses are implemented back is most players will rank those as the worst bosses, simply because they're not Lady Maria or Artorias. While some of those bosses are fun, I actually think having more challenging and complex boss fights can hurt a Souls game, because the quality of half of those hard, complex bosses will suffer from it. I mean, just look at Murgo's Wetness, or the Moon Presence. I would have preferred it if Murgo was a gimmick boss fight. I mean,
what?
Poor theme.
Murgo's Witness is, in my opinion, one of the best fights out of Bloodborne. Like, it's pretty underrated. For me, it's even above, like, Lady Maria. But this arena, the first time I fought it was just one of the best experiences I had.
To lore, nothing sounds like a hard challenging boss, and she isn't. She's really easy. She's not aggressive. She's quite slow, and she doesn't do a lot of damage.
Oh, really? Like, I got destroyed by... I think I got destroyed by this boss more than by Lady Maria. Like, it's insane.
That's because of her lore. They couldn't have made her a super cool fast-paced boss, because she's just not like that. Not everything will be a good action boss, because bosses still need to be consistent with their lore, and I think all she needed to be a great boss could have been a gimmick. And personally, I prefer a gimmick boss than a bad action boss. And something I noticed as well is that people often just don't care about the lore or atmosphere of the boss fight. For example, even if Mikolash wasn't the best in terms of being an exciting boss fight, I still loved his fight. The music, him constantly talking and howling, was just such a cool and weird
It was
moment.
weird and annoying, and I think those annoying moments must be in the game. It's something I didn't really like at all, like the Mikolash boss fight, but I think something like that is still necessary. Like, I think in games there should be moments where you should be really fed up. You need to feel a wide array of emotions throughout the journey, you know? Like, there must be annoyance, there must be like frustration and everything, happiness, all that shit, you know? But that's why I think that those boss fights are quite important, even though they are fucking annoying. Mikolash, man.
And maybe he wasn't Lady Maria, but he was a unique experience nonetheless.
Yep.
But I know that the majority of players are centered on bosses, much more than on environments. Only a niche of players are interested in such a topic, and From Software is also responsible for this process. It's not just the player base losing brain cells and certainly only liking big swords. FromSoft did it, by 1, simplifying the level design, but we already talked about that in the first part of this video, and 2, adopting a faster, more reflexive and action-oriented combat.
This is something I like more, and this was nearly perfect in Bloodborne. I love it. Like pairing with your weapon, with your gun, and it's insane.
But now,
Not a big fan of shields at all. Like, I don't like it, but I still think it should be a solid option.
I believe in the possibility to partially revert this process. Nothing prevents them from going back to more radical level design choices, and I'd love to see such a reinstatement. Just think how much a level with the radicalism of Londo would add to the most recent games. And should they put this emphasis back on creatively intimidating levels, I think players would be more open to diverse, underwhelming boss fights. And I just wish FromSoft would make some old Souls games again. Or I don't know, maybe you could travel back in time and kidnap 2006 Miyazaki. Oh, and one last thing, Bloodborne have both Dark Souls 1 and 3 DNA, like a fusion of modern and old Souls-like, and it turned out super well. even though some awesome moments were a bit ruined by modern Souls-like energy. Like when you wake up in Yahagul and you're lost, oh my god, what is this place? And oh wait, there's a lantern right there.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad Bloodborne didn't dare to make me backtrack.
The first time I got there, I really felt lost and just obsessed with the lantern, and you couldn't just TP back. Like, I would have loved it. I would have loved if they just made an area where you truly need to escape, and you respawn every single time you die. You respawn in the cell, and you can't go back until you've beaten this shit, you know? So it would be an area where you truly feel trapped in. Maybe not Yaragul, because maybe your level is not proper for that or something, but maybe another area. It should be balance around it, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Good video by someone even with less subscribers would but whoa, damn, he puts out quality. Like can put in more work in his voice or something, but this was a pretty good above average Dark Souls video. I'm not disappointed at all, and he gave out his opinion, which might not be something everyone would agree with, but it's great. Like, I love seeing content like this, seeing more diversity and like opinions, because be honest, most YouTubers just say the same shit. Yeah, Dax is absolute garbage. Play the other ones, or those specific bosses are the best ones. The other ones are completely garbage, you know? Like, that's it. Yeah, I would really appreciate some support, and I guess see you next time. Wafer.